good evening. Welcome to the Old Bridgeport Township. Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, the Board Office, the schools, and on Cablevision Channel 118 and Verizon Fios Channel 24, and by filing such notice with the Township Clerk. The meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. The board will take formal action on payment of bills and other agenda items. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Weber. The Old Bridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that that act of recording does not interfere with the business of this public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recording is to be considered a private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use. Ms. Burns,
Present.
Ms. Callie, Ms. Francisco,
Here.
Mr. Giordano, Ms. Lent, Mr. Marquetta, Mr. Slade,
Here.
Mr. Silikowski, Mr. Weber.
Here.
The quorum exists.
Will everybody rise to the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Could you get that? Thank you. I'll read the Code of Ethics corner, highlight of the month. Uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulation of the State Board of Education and court order pertaining to schools. Desired changes shall be brought about only through legal and ethical procedures. Approval of minutes, I'll accept a motion next week. Okay.
I move it.
No, next week, Matt. Okay. No. Save that for next week. Okay. All right. Any correspondence? Policy is read only. No findings. Correct. Right. Any questions from the board on the curriculum item? 2 items listed.
Hey, Frank,
Yes,
the revision that we did on the bylaw, do we have to discuss the details? The public participation of board meetings?
that's going to be
for next week.
We can discuss that tonight if anyone has any questions, or we can discuss it next week, because it's still, next week is still just the first reading,
Okay.
so we got time.
All right, on finance, I'll accept the motion to move item 1.
Slate will move it?
I'll second it. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Just one, I'm sorry, Mr. Weber. Just as a matter of procedure, if a board member is being reimbursed for any costs incurred, when his vote on the bill list will indicate that he's abstaining on that particular purchase order. So it's standard practice.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Slade?
So I should abstain. I can vote
No,
yes.
no, it will
Like
be
yes or no.
noted that you're abstaining.
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
The resolution 1, the bill is passed.
Board members, are there any other questions under the finance items? 2 through 7? Hearing none. Actually, it was 2 through 10. Any questions on athletics? Items? Yeah, 1, 2, and 3. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, we'll move on. Non-certificated personnel office. Items 1 through 3. Any discussion from board? Hearing none. Non-certificated personnel operational. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, move on. Non-certificated personnel other, items 1 through 6 through 9.
Okay, it's working now. Yeah, there's a couple of retirements. We'll go over that next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Non-certificated personnel. All right. Certificated personnel. Now, this is. All right. There will be action on 1, 2, and 3. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Francisco will second.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Silikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Resolutions 1 through 3 pass.
Items 1 through 28 under certificated personnel. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on. Non-certificated personnel, transportation. There is no item right now. Transportation. Items 1, 2, and 3. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, we'll move on. Supplies, equipment, and services. Items 1 through 28. Oh, this is carried over to the other page. Okay. Any discussion on supplies, equipment, and services? Hearing none, we'll move on. Miscellaneous. Items 1, 2, and 3. Is there any discussion?
I have a comment on 10/2022. I was also at the Finance Operations Transportation meeting.
Okay. So noted. Board Secretary? Nothing, okay. Hearing of residents on any school item. Issue.
Good evening, Jen D'Antuno, Memorial PTA. I want to take the moment and thank the Board of Education, Mr. Mara's office, Mr. Citadino, Ms. Hoger, and the transportation department. The Memorial parents were very happy to have the sit down with the transportation meeting. They felt heard and they felt as part of the solution. So I wanted to take a moment from the PTA to thank all of you for the hard work with the transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other residents care to speak? Seeing none? Is there any old business? Besides me? And any new business? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm Jean Sarkowski, school counselor at Shepherd Elementary School. As I watched the board meeting last month, I heard a lot of gnashing of teeth and anguish over educators learning about social justice. I was one of the educators who applied to and was accepted into the Social Justice Academy at Monmouth University this past July. I was offended when a particular board member spewed misinformation about what he thought educators were exposed to. He falsely suggested to this board that I attended a lecture by Dr. Bettina Love. He then went on to read out loud cherry-picked phrases from an online article from a lecturer that, again, I never heard. Then, 3 other board members who listened to these false claims voted to turn away a grant that I had worked hard for. They turned away money that I was awarded by attending classes and writing a grant during my time off. That is shameful. The board should have been celebrating this accomplishment. The board should have been proud of educators who set the example to students to become lifelong learners. Instead, what happened was a display of rhetoric that made assumptions about me as an educator that were disparaging and degrading. Let it be known that I have worked as an elementary school counselor in Old Bridge for the past 21 years. Every dollar that I have ever used to purchase supplies or equipment to do my job came from either grants that I worked hard to obtain or from my personal bank account. Denying an educator a grant that was awarded will discourage other educators in the future from ever taking their personal time or energy to try and bring money into this district. This board's decision to turn away money to support the work that we do day in and day out speaks volumes. During the last meeting here, there was lots of distress over the word activism. If, as a board member, you are afraid of the educational activism, then you do not understand the history of the civil rights movement. Schools have historically been the battleground for justice. The 4 votes cast by certain board members to deny employees grants involving diversity, equity, and inclusion demonstrates that education is currently the battleground for justice. Standing here and speaking is my activism. As a counselor, I have a unique perspective. I see the realities of the day-to-day lives of our students. I know the private struggles of families. I see the firsthand marginalization of impacts in our district. It's my responsibility as an educator to ensure that all students have equal access to opportunity and create an educational environment where all students can thrive. That is and always has been my activism and my promise to the Old Bridge community. I will work diligently to create a school culture that doesn't diminish anybody and embraces narratives of those who have not been seen and whose perspectives have not been understood. That is my activism. I will work to ensure that Old Bridge becomes a model of equity and justice and places that creates affirming learning spaces for all students. That is my activism. In the last 21 years, I've created initiatives that engage parents, caregivers, and community members and makes them powerful collaborators in inclusive education. That is my activism. We are all called to be active change makers to ensure a more equitable educational experience for our diverse learners. We must give administrators and teachers the updated tools needed to transform classrooms into intentional spaces where growing, sharing, questioning, and learning about the world around us happens. That is our activism. So while you opposed accepting the money, know that with or without the funds, I will continue to do the work, continue to support children, continue to support families, and continue to build a just culture. It is part of my social work ethics. It is part of my state mandate as an anti-bullying specialist. It is part of being a dedicated educator, and it's part of being a decent human being.
Is there anyone else who cares to speak? Seeing no hands, we move on to any old business. I think we did already. And is there any new business? Now, we do not have a closed session.
We do not.
I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Burns will make the motion.
Can I just make one comment? So I was informed that, and I think you're aware, so it's not streaming on YouTube currently? All right, so for the public who just connected then, what we're gonna do is, it was recorded. We will load it onto the website where you can see it from home if you weren't able to see the entirety of the meeting. Thank you for your patience as we work through this. Thank you.
Second.
I'll set Slade second.
Roll call. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The meeting's adjourned. 7:49 PM.